if I'm right, you had something of a cool double-edged introduction to horror. Your dad showed you some films when you were really young, but is it your cousin is Mark Lester who directed some like
That's you know what's
freaking
funny,
huge
Mark?
80s
Yes,
films, man?
his mom, my aunt, called me not 10 minutes before she's getting up there. She's not getting up there. She is up there. She's 98. His mother, my aunt, is the closest thing to a grandmother I have,
Right.
or any parental figure. So we're pretty close. And she called me just before this. I sent it to voicemail because I was trying to open my computer up and get everything going. But yeah, that's my cousin.
It did like
And
Commando, Firestarter. I
yeah,
mean, they're not tiny films, at least
no,
not for
no,
me.
those are big ones. And for me, class of 84 and the
Yeah.
sequel class of 1999, I was on set for a portion of that. I must have been 7, but
Right.
I old enough to remember. And I had already sort of been indoctrinated, if you will, by my father.
Yeah.
Because all of my early memories of my father, uh, who's long since passed, were watching horror films or doing something motorcycle related.
Right.
But those were you kind of called it. Those were the two sort of things that led me to appreciate horror at a very young age. I think I was watching, um, you know, the classic Universals and like Day of the Triffids and House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler and all that stuff at 5, 6, 7 years old, um, and had an early appreciation for stuff like Laurel and Hardy and
Yeah.
all this stuff. This kind of gets lost on a lot of people today, but
Because your
it
dad
was
had a
it was a cool way to
connection
grow up.
with, was it with William Castle, the film director behind House on Haunted Hill? Did
Um,
he live near him or something? Did I hear
yeah,
that?
so of course, so I mentioned, so my dad passed away. I was a teenager, but so there's no way for me to confirm.
All
But
right.
my dad, both my parents are Angelinos, as am I originally. And it's rare to meet anybody especially the music industry, that's from LA. And so my parents, let's see, my mom used to go to the Whiskey a Go Go in the '60s and see the Doors and stuff like that. And my dad went to some high school in the Valley. And I'm getting another story mixed in here. I was going to say his girlfriend in high school, supposedly her father, and of course I can never confirm any of
No.
this, but this was the
Still a
shit
good
that
story,
it
whatever it's
makes
going
a
to be.
good story. But this was the shit that he would tell my sister and myself. And admittedly, our grandmother, his mother, never denied any of it. So I have to assume some of it holds true. But his girlfriend in high school's father built Robbie the robot from Lost in Space. And of course, I'm drawing a blank on what sci-fi movie that is that the same robot costume was used in. But before that, when he was a little boy, and I say little, I mean like 10, I'm trying to think of the year, 59. So he was 11 or 12. Apparently, he lived in the same neighborhood as William Castle. And I keep meaning to reach out. I think William Castle, who, the Tingler, House on Haunted Hill. So, he was known in his time. And apparently, when he would complete a film, he would invite all the neighborhood kids over to screen the movie for these kids before the film came out. And
The
so
kids, not the
the
parents
legend
who were.
has it, yeah, legend has it, my father saw this movie as, I guess 10, 11, 12 years old, and it scared the shit out of him. Now, that being said, House on Haunted Hill for the time is kind of scary.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I have some of the artwork tattooed on me, and I have a ton of the original theatrical posters in the house. And so, yeah, I'm getting really long-winded here, but that's kind of where all this started. It wasn't, I didn't decide it was cool or something like
Yeah.
that. And it as horror became in vogue, I feel like with the advent of Hot Topic and maybe the internet and all these things, and bands like, whether it's AFI or whatever, becoming sort of cool, in vogue again in the late '90s. I think it became sort of hip to like a lot of this stuff. And of course, I think however you get into horror is awesome. I'm not here to
Yeah.
gatekeep anything, but I just definitely remember people being like, "You're a weird nerd," and
Oh
then
yeah.
3 years later, they were all like, I like Jason Voorhees. And I'm like, yeah. Or I like Bela Lugosi. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't feel like that last semester, bro. So as a kid, I mean, so that's that.
Which was the era of horror you initially got to, let's say, call your own when you were maybe at the video store with your dad and you're like, I saw this film in Fangoria, or somebody told me about this film. Was there anything in particular?
Anything, oh God, anything that was like, and I say this with air quotes, anything that was quote kid friendly. I mean, like Critters,
Right.
Night of the Comet, Return of the Living Dead.
Night of the Comet, I friggin' love, man. I love that film. It's got
Oh my
such a
God,
great
yeah.
vibe. It's fantastic.
Sort of subtle social commentary
Yeah.
there. Just anything from 1985 to like 1990 that caught my eye. I think like most of us of a certain age, I think anything that had a colorful, interesting looking VHS box. There was definitely some stinkers I got. And then, I was raised by a single parent, by my mother. So frequently she, between jobs, have me run into the video store and she'd be like, go get 2 videos and come back, don't get anything I won't like. And so it would be like Fox and the Hound on top of Hellraiser. I'd be like, I got 2 Disney movies, don't worry about what they are. I'm lying. And I get like what was it, what was the one with all the dead people? I've got the fucking magnet on my fridge.
With all the dead
Faces
people.
of Death.
Okay. All
Faces
right.
and Traces
Real
of
life
Death.
shit.
Shit that like 8-year-old kids should not be watching, right?
You Americans, you got lucky. All that shit got banned for us until like the late 90s.
Yeah, what was it, like the video nasties, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
which all of them are terrible. Most of them are anyway, but
Yeah, most of it by today's standards is
yeah.
just is laughable. I mean, some of that Faces of Death stuff is terrible, but in a bad way. But like what parent is worried about like Return of the Living Dead 2, you know what I mean, which is basically a kids movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love all that stuff. Ghoulie, Ghoulies 4, or anything like that.
Which is Ghoulies Go to College? Is that 3? Or is that
Yeah, I think that's 3 or 4.